G'day guys, Joel mate, Big J here. Welcome to another edition of Aussie Boxing Talk. The show literally punches you right between the fucking eyes. And happy Australia Day. It's Australia Day. It's January 26th. So it's a national day of celebration. So, get out there, have a barbecue, throw on a steak, throw on a snag, crack open a cold drink and, celebrate everything that's great in this nation and don't let all the other bullshit get in the way. But since it's Australia Day, I thought I'd want to bring up a list of some of the best Aussie on Aussie fights that I've seen. Now, remember, this is a subjective list that fights that I've personally seen myself, either through actually being there or, seeing them on tape or watching them in the pub. So these fights are only going to go back to like the last 25 years or so. One goes back a lot further than that. But, I'm going to give some fights where some Aussie on Aussie fights, some really good scraps, some most significant fights, world title fights, controversies, just some really good Aussie fights that, being Australia Day, you should go back and have a look and say, yeah, that was a bloody good fight. And once again, this is subjective. This is just my opinion. I'm sure I've left out a shitload of really domestic level scraps that I either A, haven't seen or B, completely forgotten about. But this is just my list for the Australia Day, just to give you something to, if you've got nothing to do today, load it up on YouTube and watch these fights. So, in no particular order, I think the Ben Horn, Nikita Tszyu fight needs a mention because of the pure thing that it was two brothers fighting each other after their brothers fought. So, I dare say it probably has happened in boxing before, but not on this scale. I mean, I was actually, I think this fight between Nikita and Ben was sort of like, Horn v. Tszyu number 2, where Ben almost avenged his brother's loss, like Jeff losing to Tim. I think this was 2022, a year or two after Tim pretty much demolished Jeff and put him into retirement. But go back and watch that fight. If that fight went another 30 seconds, Ben would have probably won because he had Nikita in a lot of trouble in that fight. And it was a good domestic level scrap. I think both fellas were only 3 or 4 fights into their career. And they, for what it was, they put on a good domestic level scrap. Obviously, the fight got a lot more hype than, domestic level fights at that stage. But hey, still a good scrap, still a good fight. Obviously feeding off the previous fight of their brothers, but still a good fight. So go back and watch it. I really think it was a really, really good fight for Australian boxing. Next one is probably the only ladies fight we've got on the list. Now, there's a hell of a lot of great domestic level fights out there for women. Off the top of my head, obviously recently, and obviously the women have come along greatly over the last 5 years. There's Ebony versus Shannon O'Connell. Well, not really. That was just a beatdown. That was a one-side beatdown. That didn't even happen in Australia. You got Shannon versus Shanika on the Zarafa Mundine undercard. It was a very good fight. Shannon versus Jazzy Parr. But I've gone for Kay Scott versus Desi Robinson. Their second fight. Not so much their first one, but certainly their second fight. But I've gone for, I think, probably the best women's, all Aussie women's fight. And technically speaking, Shanika's a Kiwi, but I think the fight between Shanika Johnson and Susie Ramadan on the undercard of Haney Kambosos 2 for the IBF Super Bantamweight title was probably the best female fight we've ever had. Well, Aussie on Aussie, because it had everything. Knockdowns, a bad cut, bloody war, controversies. That fight had everything. That fight had everything that you needed. First time Susie ever got knocked down, a bad cut that you thought the doctor was going to stop it, but they didn't, and the corner did a great job. A blood war. Those girls just laid into each other. I mean, obviously, Shanika to pull through that extremely bad cut. I think she copped in the 3rd or 4th round because it was going to go. I think it would have been ruled a technical draw. Yeah, that fight had everything. It was a fantastic domestic level. It was a world title fight, but an Aussie on Aussie fight. Obviously, afterwards, Susie said a couple of things that she probably shouldn't have, which put her in a bad light. But yeah, I mean, for an all-female fight, I mean, just for a fight in general, for a world title, for an Aussie on Aussie world title fight, it was a bloody good fight. It had everything. It had everything that you could have wanted in a fight. So go back and watch that one. And obviously we'll get on to the big ones now, because I've only got about 6 or 7 fights. I mean, I could have done research, I think, but these are just ones that off the top of your head you go, yeah, they were bloody good fights. So Choc, Anthony Mundine, Danny Green, number 1. Now, we obviously know that this, at the time, was the biggest domestic level fight in Australian boxing history. Crowd-wise, obviously, pay-per-view wise, I think it got 33,000 people to ANZ Stadium, whatever it was called at the time, in Sydney, breaking obviously Jeff Fenwick's record of 29,000 when he fought Zuma Nelson number 2 in Princess Park in Carlton in Melbourne in 1991. So Jeff's record stood for like 15 years, and then Green Mundine won, smashed all the records. I mean, yeah, it was a good fight. I mean, Choc won the fight. Pretty much it was a one-sided affair where Choc won 10 rounds to 2. But the significance of the fight, how it broke attendance records, it broke pay-per-view, it set pay-per-view records. And it wasn't even a non-title fight, it was a WBA eliminator. So this was the biggest domestic level fight in Australian boxing history. I don't think anything's going to match it. I don't see any other fight that could come close to getting 30-something thousand people and all those pay-per-view buys for a fight that wasn't even a world title fight. So I think that will go down in the history of Australia as the biggest domestic level fight in Australian boxing history. Easy. So moving on, I think number 3, or I think this is the top 3, and really it depends on the order, but I think the fights are the same. Jeff Horn versus Mick Zarafa, number 2. Jeff Horn versus Mick Zarafa, number 2, was one of the bloodiest, just beat down, to and fro fights I've seen in a long time. It was an absolute war. There was blood and guts everywhere. Both guys were bleeding like sieves. Both guys could have won at any time. Jeff Horn, that massive shot in the 9th round, which that one punch changed both men's careers forever, because neither guy was the same after that one punch. I think Jeff put everything he had behind that, and he had nothing left after that one punch, because when he fought Tim, he was completely and utterly shot. And Mick Zarafa hasn't been the same since that fight. Mick Zarafa has put in mediocre efforts at best since that second Jeff Horn fight. When was that? 2019. So he hasn't really done anything for 6 years. I mean, bar the Harbin fight, which was a 2-round beatdown, he really hasn't had any significant wins or anything really good since the second Jeff Horn fight. And both fighters have never been the same. I mean, Jeff obviously got the absolute shit kicked out of him by Tim, who Jeff shouldn't have been in the ring in the first place. And Mick has not been the same since. He's been mediocre at best since the second Jeff Horn fight. But what a fight. Absolute scrap. A punch from the gods that saved Jeff. I mean, the controversy of the corner, the doctor stopping, the referee stopping the fight and getting Jeff to look at the doctor, why it looks like Mick was going to finish Jeff off again. And then that punch from the gods come out of nowhere. So, yeah, go back and watch that. That's an absolutely fantastic domestic level fight. In my opinion, the 3rd best of all time. Number 2, it's Anthony Mundine again. I mean, over the last 25 years, the most significant fights in Australian boxing feature either Anthony Mundine, Daniel Gill, or Danny Green. Well, now they're obviously Tim and Jeff Horn, but from pretty much 2000 to 2017, those two guys and Daniel Gill were pretty much the three at the top. So Anthony Mundine, Daniel Gill, number 1 for the IBO middleweight title was an absolute fantastic domestic level scrap and a world title fight. Yes, it was for the IBO, but go back and watch it. It's an absolute tit for tat fight. It was so close. The only reason Chock got the win is because he got the knockdown in the second round. Right, that's how he got the win. Because bar that, Daniel gave as good as he got. It was a flash knockdown. It was only just knocked him. He got back up and they just beat the daylights out of each other. It was absolutely tit for tat fight. A fantastic scrap. Yes, Chock got the win, but he only got the win because he got the knockdown in the second round. Otherwise, it probably would have been a draw. So, absolutely fantastic fight. And the epitome of just a pure boxing contest. Right? Except for number 1. Right, so number 1, and technically speaking, this doesn't even feature 2 Aussies because both Barry Michael and Lester Ellis were born in England, but they've been here since they were like 2. But I think most people would agree that the number 1 all-Aussie fight in Australian boxing history is Lester Ellis v Barry Michael in 1985 for the IBF Super Featherweight title in Melbourne. Where was it? Festival Hall in Melbourne in 1985. Now, the reason this one's so good is because I think it would have been the first all-Aussie world title fight. 2, it was 15 rounds and one of the last fights to be 15 rounds because I think very soon after they changed from 15 to 12 rounds for world title fights. And 3, it's an absolutely fantastic fight. You know, go back and watch it. They really give it to each other, those two. Those two absolutely if you want to see what boxing is about, right? If you want to see what pure boxing is, go and watch that fight. I mean, most people will say the 2 fights that people say are the best 2 fights to watch with Aussie boxing on how to be a boxer is Jeff Fennick versus Azuma Nelson, number 1, and Lester Ellis versus Barry Michael. It's the pinnacle of what boxing should be. It's an absolute fantastic fight. It really shows what grit and guts and determination is. You know, I mean, the older veteran Barry gets the upset because most people thought that Lester was going to take care of him pretty easily. You know, I mean, Barry's career lasted another couple of years where, unfortunately, Lester's career took a bit of a nosedive because he never really recovered from that loss. But for significance, I mean, Joe Bugner was in commentary, Lionel Rose was there. It pretty much was the Mundine Green number 1 of the 80s. You know, and until, you know, Jeff Fennick and Zuma Nelson come along, it was the biggest Australian fight ever. And then, you know, Chock Mundine come along. Chock Mundine number 1 was 21 years, or almost 21 years, like 20 plus years after Ellis, Barry Michael. So, I mean, probably the biggest domestic level fight over the last 5 years is most definitely Horn Zoo. Even though it was during COVID, the pay-per-view numbers were good. The crowd was still, I think it was 16,000 people or something like that. That's pretty good for COVID, but yeah. I suppose you could throw Horn Zoo on the list as well for significance because that actually shows the transition of Australian boxing. Actually, it is a very significant fight because it shows the transition of Australian boxing from DNL being the dominant force in promoting to No Limit becoming the number 1 show in town. So actually that fight is not actually just, you know, Tim becoming the number 1 fighter in the country. It's No Limit becoming the number 1 promoter in the country, and it's transition where DNL pretty much took a nosedive after that. Dean Lonergan's DNL pretty much was stripped of all its talent after that, and No Limit became the number 1 show in town, the number 1 promoter, and they're still on top to this day. So Horn versus Zoo is definitely probably one of the most significant domestic level fights in Australian boxing history, if you think about all aspects. So yeah, throw that one in there as well. But anyway, guys, that's it for today. Tackle the ball, wrestle, crock, and yourselves a fuck up. Like, share, subscribe. Have yourselves a great Australia Day. Don't let all the negative bullshit impact your day. Get out there, play some beach cricket, play some footy. You know, go out and put your feet in the salt water. Go out and have a swim. Get out in the fresh air and nature and enjoy this beautiful country. Have yourselves a great Australia Day, and we'll see you another day.